If you're a leader, you know the feeling. It's that nagging sense that no matter how fast your team runs, you're always just one step behind. Well, today, we're going to dive into a framework that finally gives that feeling a name. It's the question that just haunts boardrooms, right? Why are we always late? You push for more speed, your teams work harder, and yet there's still this constant feeling of being out of sync. It turns out the reason has a lot less to do with speed than you might think. So it all starts with this feeling, this constant feeling of delay. You know the one. It's that sensation that by the time you've finally made a decision, the world has already moved on, and you're just reacting to a problem that's already shapeshifted into something new. And what's really interesting is that the crises we face, they're hardly ever a surprise lightning strike from a clear blue sky. They might feel sudden, sure, but they're almost always the predictable, final, and painful outcome of a long, slow process of falling out of sync with what's actually happening. I mean, just think about the last crisis you went through. It probably followed this exact pattern, didn't it? First, reality changes. Maybe a market shifts or a new tech pops up. Then these tiny little signals appear, but they're subtle, easy to miss. Inside your organization, different teams start reading those signals in totally different ways. So this delays any clear decision, which then, of course, delays the response. And boom, by the time everyone's on the same page, that small problem is now a full-blown crisis. So here's the big insight, the real takeaway. This pattern, it isn't a people problem. It's not because you have lazy or incompetent employees. No way. It's a structure problem, and it's literally baked into the very way our organizations are designed to work. Our first instinct is always the same. We gotta move faster, work harder, more speed. But that completely misses the point. The real reason organizations fall behind isn't about the speed of execution. It's all about the alignment of perception. I mean, are we all even looking at the same reality to begin with? And this pipeline right here shows us exactly why that alignment is so darn hard to achieve. Think about it. A critical piece of information from the front lines, from the person who sees reality changing first, has to travel through all of these stages just to become a decision. Each step adds another layer, another interpretation, another summary, another meeting. It's not just a process. It's a system that's almost perfectly designed for delay. So, if this gap is such a huge structural problem, how do we even begin to talk about it? Well, you start by giving this invisible force a name. We're going to call it delta T. And this is the absolute core of the delta framework. It gives us a language for this structural gap, which we call delta T, or delta T. Put simply, delta T is the time it takes for your organization's perception to finally catch up with a change that has already happened out there in the real world. This visual just captures the whole concept perfectly. See, reality moves continuously, like a smooth, flowing curve. But an organization's understanding, it moves in these clunky, delayed steps, after a quarterly report or a big annual meeting. And that growing gap between the smooth curve of reality and the jagged steps of your company's awareness, that, my friends, is your delta T. And that leads us to a pretty sobering formula. What it means is that your organization is never making decisions based on reality as it is right now. You're not operating on reality T. Nope. You are always operating on old information, reality at time T minus that structural delay, your delta T. Let me put it another way. You're using yesterday's map to navigate today's terrain. Just let that sink in. Every single decision you make is based on data that was already out of date by the time it even got to you. This is the fundamental challenge that the delta T framework helps us finally see clearly. Okay, now here's where it gets really fascinating. This structural gap, this delta T, it means that different people inside the very same company are living in completely different realities at the same time. Just look at this. The person on the ground, the one closest to the customer, they see a problem immediately. They're like, hey, we've got a problem. But as that signal travels up the ladder, the delay, the delta T, it just grows and grows. The team lead is kind of saying, I'm not sure yet. The executive, I haven't been briefed. And for the CEO, way up top, everything is normal. See, they aren't even disagreeing with each other. They're literally living in different time zones of the exact same problem. So what on earth do we do with this powerful, if maybe a little depressing idea? Well, the first thing to get is that the delta T framework is not a map that just gives you all the answers. Think of it more like a dashboard. It's a diagnostic tool. So it's not giving you a map to a destination. It's more like a really important gauge on your dashboard. It doesn't tell you where to go, but it sure does tell you if your engine is overheating. It helps you shift the entire conversation from, okay, what should we do, to a much more fundamental question. Hey everyone, how big is our delta T right now? And that really brings us to the ultimate goal of using this framework. It's not about being perfect. It's about making this invisible gap, this delta T, visible to everyone in the organization. We just have to accept one fundamental, unavoidable truth. Ready? Reality always moves first. We, as an organization, will always understand it later. You could say the gap is a feature, not a bug. So the goal isn't to magically eliminate delta T. I mean, that's impossible. The real goal is simply to make it visible, to measure it, to talk about it openly. Because the second you can see the gap, you can start to manage it. You can finally have those really honest conversations about what alignment actually looks like. And that leaves us with one final question to take back to your team. What does your organization's delta T look like? How big is that gap between what's really happening out there and what your leadership team is actually discussing? And maybe most importantly, what can you do starting today to make it visible?